Hi, everyone. My name is Kadira. Welcome to Viral Debates. On today's episode, we are discussing diaspora wars and why it persists. So, before we get started, I want to introduce my guests. Today, I have LaRon.
Hey,
Hey.
what's up?
Where are you from?
I'm from East New York.
East New York.
Yeah.
Okay, where's your family from?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, South Carolina. Like near like Columbia, the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then we also have Sharon.
Hi.
Hey. And where are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn, and my family is from Orangeburg, South Carolina.
South Carolina, of course. And where are you from? Wait, what's your name? Camille?
Yes,
And where are
I'm
you from?
Camille. Originally from Long Island, but now living in Queens. Family is from Jamaica. I'm first generation.
Okay. Both your parents are from Jamaica?
Both of them, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we got South Carolina and Jamaica in the building. And then I am Kadira. My mother's side is from South Carolina, and my father's side is from Jamaica.
Oh,
wow.
You're right in the middle.
So I'm right in the middle, right?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. So welcome everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
I feel like I've talked about this topic a million times on Twitter, and I feel like there is a lot of beef within the diaspora, and I'm not really sure where the energy is coming from, but I think I figured it out. But I'd like to hear from you all. So, is there a beef within the diaspora? Do you guys feel like there's beef? And I wish we had a person from the continent of Africa to come and speak here, to actually add to that conversation, but it's all good. We can talk about this side of the world. So, Is there beef within the diaspora? Why or why not?
Yeah. I think there's beef. I think there's I think the term is what, foundational Black Americans. They're from here, or they're claiming America. In the Caribbeans, they feel like they come here and they don't necessarily like align with the same morals that FBA align with. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with you with that. Also, ADOS, American Descendant of Slavery. So, like I say I'm ADOS because I am a descendant of chattel slavery, and I know my plantation and everything. So I definitely think that it's just like cultural differences. Like a lot of people like just don't believe African Americans have culture, and we don't know who we are just because we're from America. And that's where the beef I personally have comes from, because that's not true.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think that there's beef. I feel like, especially coming from my family being from Jamaica and then migrating here, and then me actually being like first generation American, like I feel like there's definitely that distinction amongst even my family of like, oh, you're not even really from the Caribbean, you are American type thing. So yeah, I do feel like there is definitely a clear segregation between like the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we don't have somebody here from the continent of Africa. Do you feel like there's more beef with Africans and Caribbeans? Do you feel like there's any type of beef there?
No, I feel like if anything, it's a little bit more love there. Like, because like my family, like we always say like I'm a Ghanaian princess, like because I was from the Ashanti tribe. So like there's a lot more, I feel like, love given towards like us being from Africa. Like we love that. We don't like, there's a difference between like, okay, we do Jack being Jamaican, but like we also have that very clear, distinct, like, yeah, but I'm also African. Like I'm from the Ghanaian tribe, and like I know where I'm from, like for real.
Yeah.
So
I find that too. I find that like there seems to be like a connection between the continent and the Caribbean islands.
yeah.
And I know why. I actually did some history, and like I saw that basically back during slavery times, like they would bring more people from Africa, the continent, over into the Caribbean. And where at that point in the Americas, we were like 500, not 500, we were like 200 years removed from new Africans coming onto the States. And so at that point, we had been like generations broken away from the continent, whereas like the African slaves kept trickling into the Caribbean society. So I read that's why there's a closeness there. But that's interesting. So let's explore that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I had
So-
no idea.
So I have this tweet by Mick Beanie _, And they said African Americans are by far the worst representation of Black people. They are obnoxious, self-righteous assholes that make people's lives a living hell anywhere they go. And then she got like 390 likes.
Is she also Black?
No, I don't know what she was. But
Okay.
This is what she said. Yeah.
Wow. That's really a lot of hate, I feel like. I don't even really feel that way. I feel like that's a little harsh. But I do, like, coming from, my mom would say, because I'm obviously, like, American, right? And I'm born and raised, like, in New York. So I have a lot of, like, culture, you feel me, from America. But, like, my mom would agree with that comment. Like, she would agree with that post. She would say, like, you know, lazy, like, loud, rude, all the negative connotations, like, you can think about when it comes to, like, born and raised, like, African Americans. That's what my mom was going to call them, right?
Yeah.
So why would she say that?
Because I don't like Jamaican, like, Caribbean people. I don't even know if it's, like, a Caribbean thing or just, like, a Jamaican thing. But we come here, when my mom comes here, and she's working, right? Like, she's, like, busting her butt. Her mom is here busting her butt, and, like, there's this, and I'm from New York, so, like, I don't know about anything going on, like, in the South, but, like, we're from New York, we come here, and, like, a lot of people are, like, you know, living on, like, government assistance and all those type of things. So, like, there's that negative, like, connotation of, like, Black Americans don't want to work, they don't want to get to it, they don't want to, like, get ahead in life and, like, increase their generational wealth and stuff like that. And, like, also my mom, she will discuss, like, things like when Marcus Garvey, like, came to America to, like, you know, speak to Black Americans and say, like, listen, you guys cannot let white people oppress you, because in Jamaica, we revolted against our slave masters. Like, we ran into the mountains, we created, like, nanny towns and stuff like that. So it's like, we kind of, like, we weren't taking it like slavery. We were not taking all that oppression. So there was, I think there's a lot there. There's a lot there.
I think so. Me being both, I have a lot to say, but I want to hear from y'all.
Yeah, I got a lot to say because I'm real crazy.
Yeah,
I got so much to say.
I want to just caveat though, like, this is what I was taught.
Yeah, no.
Right? Obviously, like, I'm from here and I disagree with a lot of the things she says, because this is not, I lived here, like, I grew up here, so it's like, it's different. But I just say, like, that's what older generations think.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like it's so interesting. There's so much you touched on that it's just, like, so many things I want to, like, touch on.
A notepad. Like,
I'm like, let me scribe here, but I'm going to start with, like, one. I'm not Caribbean American at all. And I think it's so interesting that you asked her a question earlier about the relationship Africans have with Caribbean Americans. And so many people I have met, they feel like Caribbean Americans are so more aligned with African values because of that. But there's such a misconception about that because, like, during slavery, you know, like, when people moved across the ships, a lot of people who came from the Caribbean actually went to the Carolinas and came back to the Caribbean.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So that's like a whole thing people don't know, a story that, like, was never told, and they keep that away for specific reasons, right? Second thing you touched on was just, like, this ideology about taking government assistance. Black people are not even the ones who have
That's
the
the
most government
thing.
assistance in America. We've never been,
Yes.
absolutely. And it's actually the only reason why there's so many Black fathers not in the household, and also so many Black mothers who are super hyper independent now because of that. And I also think that this other idea that they're lazy or that, like, they weren't fighting for their freedom is so wrong, because the ideas that a lot of the Caribbean countries got were from us revolting also here in America, right? There were a lot of American slaves that got their freedom, and then they went to the Caribbean and told people what they were doing, and they started also revolting. And then it was just like a mixed relationship happening where everybody was revolting at the same exact time, just not close enough to know that it was going on at the same time.
Right.
And I think that because of that, so many people have been taught that our people are, like, lazy or we're not willing to work, when that's not true. Like, the establishment of this country has been on the backs of our labor, and, like, the enjoyment for other immigrants or migrants to come here is because of our fight for our freedom here in America.
And I tell her all the time, I'm like, listen, you came, you could have very much stayed in Jamaica, right? Like, you came here obviously for a reason.
Right.
So
And-
you can't.
Yeah, and I want to add that, like, so I have to I don't have these conversations with my Jamaican side because I visited their house every 2 weeks. That was like the custody arrangement my parents had. So I grew up mostly around my foundational Black American side. And I feel like my grandmother, I've never heard her actually say it, but I can tell there's like
Your
this
Jamaican grandmother?
my Jamaican grandmother. I can tell there's like this othering. Like she would be in the kitchen and she would just be saying like, yeah, we work hard, as if she's distinguishing how hard she works versus my mom and my grandmom. And I used to feel a way about that. So I feel like, well, number one, obviously, Black Americans, descendants of slavery here, they've laid a foundation for others to come over here and be successful. And that is never, I tapped the table. That is never acknowledged. And I feel like that is so like disheartening because when it's not acknowledged and then you guys become successful, it's almost like you had to step on our backs to get there and no one is saying it. It's like if I go to Jamaica today and I start calling the Jamaicans lazy and welfare queens and all of that stuff, they might chop my head off because it's like disrespectful to go to somebody else's land and do that. So that's why I feel like the beef, that's why I feel like it persists because it's like no acknowledgement of like the foundational Americans that have done a lot here. And then also you said something about some people went back and forth, and a lot of people don't know that. I always felt like Black Americans were closer to Caribbeans because of our same history and how much we went back and forth. There's a study that came out that said Bajans actually have lineage traced back to Massachusetts.
So that's so interesting because so Shirley Chisholm, right? Like Shirley Chisholm and her parents
went to her daycare.
When they came here to New York, and when she went to Brooklyn College, right? Her family was given housing priority over African American families, and she wrote about that in her book to share to people that like during that time America was intentionally bringing Caribbean families here and giving them more generational wealth and taking that away from the African Americans that were already here, like the ones who migrated from the South. She wrote about it in her book, and many of the Caribbean Americans did.
So I went to Brooklyn College too, and I have this Trinidadian professor, and she told me this, and I can't find the statistic, the data. I can't find it. But what she said was like back in like the 60s, 70s, they wanted a more docile N-word. Like they wanted a more docile Black person. And they felt like the Caribbeans were that. And the Black Americans, they were on the Black Panther time and civil rights. They was doing too much. Yeah. So they brought over the more docile, well-behaved, hardworking Black people from the Caribbean, and they gave them opportunities to land and housing, and especially in New York. So that's why you see that a lot of Caribbeans own houses here, and our homeowners here have stores. Like my grandmother has like 4 properties in Crown Heights, and her husband, he's Guyanese. He had like corner stores and things of that sort. Meanwhile, my side that I grew up on, we've always been renters. We've always been just, workers. We've never owned anything. So it's just really interesting that is the case. And like, I basically, I can't find the statistics on it, but I'm happy that you mentioned that because my Trinidadian professor was like, no, you need to look into this.
Yeah, you have to.
And I'm like, when you look into it, it's kind of like, wow, like they're just giving what we work for away.
And that's why we ask for reparations. Like, I'm literally like, that's like, it's because every other subgroup of people, even within Black people, have gotten more than African Americans, and just people don't know that. I get why there's the beef because you just don't know.
Yeah,
right?
It's a misinformation. And like before I came over here, I was talking to my friend about it, and I was just like, that's really what it is. It's a lack of knowing. It's a lack of knowledge, and also like this, perception of just like from Caribbeans being passed down to generation to generation to generation. And like if you don't know any better, and if you don't like question it, you just kind of just keep passing down the misinformation without even really like being like, why is this happening? I personally had no idea about like Caribbeans coming to or being like brought to America and like being given away like housing and things like that. Just willingly. But like what? Not only did I not know that, but it kind of allows you to like once you know those things, you're like, okay, more grace is kind of extended, versus like this harsh, I'm sure if she knew or whoever wrote that knew that, I feel like it would be a different tone. Like even from my mom too, like she wouldn't have so much of like they've been here for thousands and hundreds and millions and they're in the same spot. Like, why do you think that is? And that's the information that you need. This is exactly why. Like, it's unfair treatment. It's unjust.
And I also think that, like, it's interesting because, like, Caribbeans, like, they, how do I say this? Okay, like, there's a lack of information, but it's like you come onto somebody else's land and you don't want to learn, like, what these people have been through. I know, like, for me, I, like, because I do have lineage tracing back to Jamaica, I, like, looked into, like, the history there, and I'm like, oh, wow, like, they're literally, if anything, they're literally have not progressed. Like, they're just getting permission from the queen to drop her as head of state, right? And, like, whereas we've progressed a little bit more, and then also, like, it's just like it's the same plight, it's the same struggle, but we're discredited in every way over here. So I just feel like, you know, if people would, first of all, I feel like the migration here is too much, and people come here and they start just pouncing down.
By too much?
Like, I feel like there's too many people, and it's too much people from. All right, so like other countries, they don't have an immigration policy. You can't migrate to the Caribbean in big groups like how we accept people here in the Americas. And so I feel like when you fight against white supremacy, and then you have to also fight your people and the diaspora, it's just too much. It's just too much. Then you got to fight the
that's too much, because I'm thinking, like, we have enough land to, like, house these people.
Yeah, that's
but why would we? The thing about it though is, like, we do, but our people aren't housed here. Our people aren't progressing here.
That.
So it's like, I don't want to.
But that's our problem. We got to heal enough, and we got to educate ourselves to get to the point where we can establish that. But I don't have a problem with, like, immigration, like, because we have enough space. I think, like, New York City is mad populated. We have like 8 million people here. But we have enough land to, like, house, like, enough immigrants.
I have a problem with it when they come with that disheartening attitude. Because it's like we already have to deal with white supremacy.
People.
So if you come here,
I do agree that the
you,
immigrants should come over here and be educated. Same thing, like, if we was to do dual citizenships and go over there, I think that it's important that we understand their government systems and how they work before moving over there. Same thing with immigrants. They should learn about our government. But I also believe that we need to educate ourselves on our government, because the school system definitely misinformed us about certain parts of our government. And this is why we are at the place that we are at now, thinking that presidential elections, for example, is the main election that we should pay attention to, knowing that states and local elections is equally important.
Right.
I think I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. I'm going to have, like, I always, like, play devil's advocate.
Okay.
And then I'm going to, like, switch over to, because I've had, like, several relationships with people who are especially African Americans, not African Americans, but African Americans that are now here, right? Or that's what I call them.
That's why it's so confusing to use that term, right?
I use it. I know. There's a lot of.
I don't like the term African American, because African is a continent and America
I'm gonna
is
say
a country.
I'm gonna say I like the term African American because it was created by African Americans. So, like, I prefer to be called something that was created by my people rather than me being called something that wasn't created by my people, right? And there's many cultures that have that connotation, but I prefer being called African American because I just can distinguish myself from other people. But getting back to what, like, you guys were having that conversation on, I think that the idea is that, like, there's more opportunities here. There's, in fact, more opportunities to grow. I've met several African entrepreneurs, business owners who legit will come here, honestly, because there's a better room and opportunity and floor to be able to grow in their work and go back home to contribute to where they're from.
And I have a problem with that too.
And I think that I think that for me, though, being someone who believes in, like, Pan-Africanism and stuff like that, I do get upset about that, but then I do understand the bigger narrative, right? To improve our people entirely, right? So that means educating everybody. I don't necessarily think that it's my expectation to believe that when Caribbean Americans or Africans come to this country, they need to know, right? Because obviously they've been misled this entire time, and so have we. Mm-hmm. I think that is just our opportunity, like, which is why I pride myself in being, like, culturally African American, so that whenever you're interacting with other people who are from the diaspora, you can literally like tell them the truth about everything so that they can just have like a better understanding of what it's like to actually live in this country. And 9 times out of 10, people who come here, they recognize that things are different here, and that just because you're from where you're from, when you walk on this land, you're Black. That's it at the end of the day. And white supremacy does not miss you just because you're from a different country. They're going to treat you like everyone else when you come here.
You feel like that though?
I super feel like that. And I know that there's so many people that have experienced that coming here. People who like, I was watching a TikTok and this Black guy, he's British, and he was Black. And like he said that he turned around and a girl was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you speak like that." And she was like, "You speak like that?" And he was like, "Why didn't you think I could speak like that?" Because they don't assume that Black people live in places like England, or they don't assume that they could have, they can speak proper English, right? Everyone thinks that just because I'm African, I can't turn off my dialect. It's called COINTELPRO. It's like, you can code switch all the time. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I'm getting at to that point. It's just that like, everyone assumes that African Americans have this ghetto like mentality, and the idea of what ghetto looks like and what we are as ghetto people is where like we have to educate others who do come here to understand that like what they saw on the television screens wasn't the depiction of who we really were as people. Actually, was far from that. You know?
I think they know that. I think like I don't think these people are stupid. They know that TV is creating a different picture of these people than they need to acknowledge. You know what they showed me of Africa when I was in 2nd grade? They showed me babies with flies around them, and I had to really be like, these people don't live like that. Like, y'all gotta stop lying to me. You know what I mean? So I feel like they know that, and like to carry on the hatred into your adult life is like you're purposely trying to, I guess make this group like beneath you, because it benefits you to put down Black Americans. I think any other group that comes here, it benefits them to look down upon us, because then they get their proximity to whiteness and they get to grow and things of that sort. But I also want to just touch on what you just said about like them coming here, becoming successful and bringing it back home. Mm-hmm. Ideally, in my unicorn world, I would be a Pan-Africanist, and I would love that. I would love to go to Jamaica, build. I would love to go to different parts of Africa, build. I would love for those people to do the same, but it's not the same love. Like, it's just not the same. So it's like, ideally I would want that, but what that does is you're taking American dollars and you're funding your country. Meanwhile, the people here are still suffering. They're still beneath. They're still not able, the descendants of slavery are still not able to grow their wealth. And so I feel like if they were to come and build with us, then it would make sense. But it's like those people like would come and only hire white people or only do things for others and just be like, no, we're not hiring those people. And that's where it bothers me. But yeah.
I think I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. And I know so many people who feel that way, like in my group. I just think that at the end of the day, I still put that responsibility on like me and like my people who I know. It's kind of like, because we have to break our own generational curses. Like, relying, and I feel like because we are so apart as a people and we've never come together, that we as Americans, Black Americans, African Americans have to come together as a united front. And I'm pretty sure, right? Like when we did do it before, the rest of the world would see what that looks like,
they
right?
Suit. And in England, they had their own Black Panther party there too.
Yeah,
Didn't know
we
that.
still have one here.
You gotta watch Small Acts. Do you guys have Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
Go watch Small Acts. In England, there's this Black Panther group. They were made up of like Jamaicans, Caribbeans. I think there was some Africans in the group. And there was just some regular Black Brits over there. But they made their own Black Panther party. And if you saw what they went through, they had to experience the school to prison pipeline there. They also had to experience, like, they would put Black children back on purpose in schools over there. The police would harass their businesses over there. So it was like the same thing happening over there. You guys got to watch that. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like what we do, it kind of trickles onto society. You brought up reparations. And I feel like the more we fight for it here, then countries like Jamaica could get their reparations from the Queen. And, you know, even countries, I think the Congo is ran by the Queen as well, or England, I'm not sure. But they can also get theirs. You know, Angola getting theirs from the Portuguese. Like, we kind of start the choo-choo train and everybody comes along, and I'm fine with that. But it's just like, I would love the real, you know, crossing and beneficial type of society. I don't want to be feeding everybody. I'm one person. That's how I feel. And that's what I feel about Black Americans. I feel like we're always pouring into others and they don't pour back into us. And it's kind of hurtful. It's so hurtful to me.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Isn't Jamaica like under China dictatorship?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But I do know that a lot of Chinese come to Jamaica and build up Jamaica.
Yeah.
The highway systems.
I'm thinking like if we was to do that, go back to Jamaica and build up over there, would like Chinese like take over it, or like how does that work?
I know
but the Chinese is everywhere in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I feel
there was this story that came out that the Chinese and the Indians was building a hotel in Jamaica, and the Jamaicans burned it down because they said no Jamaicans allowed. So, but the Jamaican government, I'm not sure of this, but I'm pretty sure they're allowing this. So it's like nobody could just walk onto your country and start doing things. You know what I mean? So somebody's shaking hands with somebody else.
They're bringing their workers from China to build whatever.
That.
But then, of course, if you're working there, you're going to meet somebody, have some babies, build a family type thing. So then that's how that
and I guess the Jamaican gene is stronger.
Well, in Jamaica, the thing is, like, I think the difference sometimes, and it's still there too, like in Jamaica, where there is like that light skin, dark skin, Chinese, like mixture, you know, colorism going on. Yeah. But I feel like in Jamaica, if you're Jamaican, regardless of if you have one piece of something in you that's from Jamaica, you calling yourself a Jamaican. You know, like you're not jacking I'm a half Chinese, half Indian, 3/4 Native American. Like you're like, I'm Jamaican.
Right.
People might be like, how are you Jamaican? But like you're still calling yourself that type of thing. There's like, I think that pride there versus like here, I feel like it's definitely more like you don't want to be, like it seems like you don't want to be like fully Black. You want to be closer to whiteness because closer to proximity to whiteness because that's more favorable. It gets you like in higher places. But obviously, like if you're Jamaican, you're not trying to be anything else other than Jamaican because you don't have to.
Yeah, well, you're here in America. It's internalized. It's literally internalized racism.
Yeah.
Internalized racism is like this this idea where like you've internalized all the oppressions and the 5 eyes of oppression all around you, and like you don't want to be yourself. That's legit like what the system here
is meant to
do. Like a lot of people don't want to be themselves here because of the fact that being Black here is a crime. Legitly, like technically, to be Black is a crime. To wear our hair is a crime. That's not what we were supposed to do. Like they've literally taken us out of who we really were for a very long time. Like even like our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, all of them, like who they were, their culture and their identity was stripped away from them at any chance that they can get. It could be like just their hair, it could be their clothing. And so I think that a part of that is that when you come here and you don't know that that's happening or that happens or it's going to happen to you, you kind of think that, oh, in this world we live in, oh, I'm going to do good. And then you realize it's kind of a little bit harder than you think.
I don't think, and that's the thing, I feel like talking to my mom and like actually having to let her know like this is not, because she grew up with all like people that look like her around her. She doesn't even, I don't even think she really understands fully like what it's like to not have that pride in yourself and like really have that, it's not like a self-love, but just like a resistance against wanting to assimilate in order to be accepted. You know what I mean? Like going through that internal struggle for years, I feel like that's difficult on anybody.
Yeah. Something else I want to explore though, because you said that like our culture was stripped away. I also did like some research about Jamaica, and it's so interesting because I feel like their culture was also stripped away, but they rebuilt it because Jamaica's actual name is Zamaka, and the English people could not pronounce it, so they decided to put a J. And it's like, who told you could do that? Like, who told you could do that? So the indigenous people actually did not call it that. And the indigenous of Jamaica, they were like these light brown, short people. And
Arawaks.
Arawaks, Tainos. And then they mixed them with the the African enslaved, and like they had a specific culture that they had, and it was, you know, stripped away and called Jamaican by the English. And so I feel like that's why I always felt like, you know, Black Americans, we had like I thought we had a connection more so with the Caribbean because we have the same history. Like, they stripped away our indigenous cultures. They even stripped away our like because indigenous mixed in with the enslaved always creates like a Creole, right? So in South Carolina, like
we call them mulatto.
Yeah,
mulattos.
We also have the Gullah Geechee in South Carolina. I don't know if you guys know about that.
No, the Gullah Geechees, and they're in South Carolina and in Orleans areas. Those are actually African slaves that are brought into like those areas, but they have like a different like slang.
Yeah,
and
they talk
the way they talk,
same.
and they have their own languages as well. Like they were like, I guess you could call that like a clan of people that migrated into their own areas, but they have some in like Florida areas too as well.
Yeah,
but like
Gullah Geechees are in Florida,
and
New
most,
Orleans,
and most people think they're Caribbean, and they are proud Gullah Geechee people that do not like that.
On Twitter, she said that she thought a Gullah Geechee person was like Trinidadian. I'm like, what? Like they sound different or whatever.
I've never heard of a Gullah Geechee person.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Like that's really like
we need so much education.
yeah. I was like, because Gullah Geechee people, like, you eating that jambalaya, you eating that gumbo, you eating like all that
That's
stuff. Like that's Gullah Geechee food.
Yeah. I had
No
some
idea.
2 weeks ago, but yeah, it's good. But another thing I wanted to explore, I guess the last thing was, well, first I want to talk about, you said that you already spoke on it a little bit. You said that like your experience with Africans, you feel like a closeness, right? What about you guys?
Very problematic because again, like for me, like I think that this year it's become more problematic for me because like I've been exposed to Africans who have had like various experiences apparently with us, right? Like, and their perspective of us is literally stuck. It's no shifting it. And no matter how many conversations I've had, it won't shift. And I'm kind of like, that's like weird. Like I remember driving with a friend of mine and I like turned my music up like a little bit louder, right? And they were like, oh, you're playing your music like those ghetto Blacks and those Dominicans. And I was like, I'm Black American. All right, like it was just so shocking to hear that. And then like I sat back and I was just kind of like, is that what you think? I'm like, do you know like you living in New York, everyone does that. Whether you're Black, whether you're white, everyone does that here in this city, right? And I think that for me, when you come to this country, it's like you can't come with those negative perspectives, but it's bound to happen. And I think that for me now, like interacting with people is probably much harder, being that I've been in spaces where people are just talking so down on who I am and my culture. And it's kind of like, I think that it's just going to take like more of us as, you know, ADOS people, FBA people to kind of like share, like, this is who we are. Like, you guys have to like either accept it or step to the side, because there's a lot of change that's about to happen in this country, for one, right now. And the only people who are going to do the change are Black Americans, because Caribbean Americans, and this is no offense, but I've been around several Caribbean Americans, Africans, who are afraid of resistance. They are afraid to revolutionize. And being a part of that Black Panther struggle, being a part of the civil rights movement, it takes a lot of willingness to give up things and to sacrifice. And I'm willing to die for my race. I'm literally willing to die for my freedom. So, and I was an activist, right? And so people would always ask me like, how are you willing to do this? I'm like, because what is life without freedom? Like, you know? And so like this, it's not even a question, but I've seen so many people who are like, no, I'm okay. I'm just here to assimilate. And that's because there's a legit reason why they're here. They're here to improve themselves, to go somewhere else to improve where they're from, right? Yeah. And so that's why I no longer have conversations with those people, right? I just worry about my people who want to improve here. And then the people from those subgroups who want to improve America, I bounce with them. Yeah. I'm not floating with people who want to assimilate into this whole capitalistic, you know, this whole capitalist mindset where it's one man for one man. No, I'm for my people. Like,
and that's I want to know what you think, because I was gonna say like that's something. So my boyfriend's Nigerian, and that's a conversation that I've had with him. I feel like his mindset is more so like me, my family, that's it. Yep. And I grew up in a mindset where it's like, no, it's my people, my people, my people. So it's like a different mindset. Like I feel like the mindset is just more so like, I want to be free. Like, I don't want to just buy nice things and be comfortable. Like, I actually want to be free. Like, and so I was exploring that with him because I think there's a difference in the culture.
Yeah.
And I didn't get around a lot of Africans until college, and they was like, I'm not black, I'm African. I was like,
Yo, you know,
okay.
I think it's,
I don't know.
I think it's like, yo, I had a Nigerian, but this was all the way back in high school, but like, this is clicking now because he would always say little things like, you don't have your last name. I have my last name. Like, there was even a difference in like me and him. Like, me being even Caribbean, I'm just like, I don't have my last name, but like, I feel just as much pride as being from Jamaica as you do being from like your family being from Nigeria.
I mean, and that's so great. Okay, so like my ex is Nigerian too.
Is he
Igbo or Yoruba?
He's Igbo, and
What about
he's,
you?
he's Yoruba.
Yeah, and so like he's actually he was born in Nigeria, lived there for a few years, and then he moved to England with his family, and he lived there. So he's like Nigerian but British, right? And so I guess the guy that I was like dating, right? Like he literally said the same things to me. You know, like if we were to have a family, like they would just be African, they wouldn't be African American, and that is where I knew like this probably could never had worked with me because like that is such a cultural thing that I would never take away from myself. Like
Absolutely.
I'm African American too. But I think that what you just said was very interesting because a lot of those tribes, are like swapped and like moved around so much. So I would have even like argued back with them, like, are you sure that's really your last name also?
Right? Like,
because historically
tribes
speaking, that's
enslaved other tribes.
Yes.
So are you sure?
Yes.
That's
are you
your last
pretty
name?
sure that
Right.
that's your last name? Are
Has
you pretty
anybody
sure
had
that
a
you're
good
from?
experience with like a Black American relationship?
Well, like with a African or like with a
With a Black American and Black American?
Well, this is
my
my first
friends.
relationship in my life. So.
No, so like
Yeah.
me personally, I'm not even gonna lie with you. I haven't had good relationships with Black American men also because like I'm in like apparently like where I lie on the spectrum of Black American women, right? Like I'm not on the spectrum of
The
something,
ghetto,
right? Like
whatever.
they call me the Black white girl sometimes, and I'm like,
Oreo.
how? Like
The Oreo.
I
The way
guess
you
because
pronounce your words?
because I can speak proper English,
Yeah.
right? And because I'm in different like spaces and like my spaces are not the same spaces they float in, and I don't go to certain spaces because that's just my comfortability. However, like who do I see myself like probably in the future with? Like and that's kind of weird. Like I prefer to date someone that might not be Black American, right? And if they are Black American, they might be someone who came from somewhere else and became Black American.
Really?
Does that make sense? Like someone who like switches their, like someone who can understand that they are two people at one time, right? Like if I was with a Black, like I've met a lot of in the South, actually, there's a big difference between Southern Caribbeans and Southern Africans who go straight to the South. You know why? Because they understand the plight then. Because
It's so
they
interesting.
see it
I
more
just
in
came
the
back
South.
from North Carolina,
Yeah.
and there was this like this whole
I'm-
Nigerian crew, and they had Southern accents, and I was like, "What am I experiencing right now? Like, this is too much for me."
Yeah.
And they're more accepting of us as Black
They
Americans.
were more accepting, and I talked a lot. Like I told them a lot of history, and they was like, "Girl, we need to follow each other on Instagram." I was like, "What am I doing right now?"
They understand more because they see that Black people in the South are still struggling like they were struggling before. Like the North is kind of like detached from the South in so many ways that
Yeah,
people
yeah.
have no idea. Like there's still segregation in the South, and
But
people
why-
don't know that.
But why wouldn't you date a Black American?
I'm not saying that I wouldn't date a Black American. I would rather date a Black American who knows their identity. That's what I meant.
Oh,
by saying. Sorry
okay.
for tapping
Okay,
the table.
'cause I'm
saying
trying to read this.
No.
Okay,
I'm saying that like I have met Black Americans that don't know their identity as a Black American, and that's problematic for me because I do. Like I would
Okay.
rather be with someone.
You want
who's
somebody
pro-Black.
who's-
Yeah.
What does that mean when
A
you say
pro-Black.
they don't know their identity?
They're not pro-Black. Like
Okay.
you're
You want somebody
assimilating.
on code.
They okay.
Yeah.
yeah, you
they're-
want somebody that's on code
Yeah.
like you, so that they can understand you.
Like if he
Yeah.
doesn't, we can't
But
talk to each other.
Do you think there's a reason for that? Because we haven't been educated.
I don't think there's a reason. Well, for me and where I think there could be reasons for that, but those are different groups of like men. Like, and then I've met different groups of men who are very woke and aware of themselves. They didn't even have to go to school to do that, right?
I
Like
get
my
you.
father was incarcerated my entire life. My father did not go to college. My father barely graduated high school, but my father is very much pro-Black and he knows so much just by reading on his own, right? So I think that that's a cop-out because like you can't tell me you don't know things and you've been living here. You see it every day and you're telling me
Right.
that you don't get the urge to want to wake up. Like when Trayvon Martin died everyone woke up in this country.
Yeah.
Most people did. Most people educated themselves. And that's why you see more African Americans are willing to speak out, especially the millennials, because we were the ones who kind of like struggled through, and now everyone is that Gen Z. They're all like getting what, the millennials work for in respects to what you're asking.
Right. Now, what about your experience with Africans? Do you feel like there's any tension there, or any, like, I guess, diaspora war there?
Basically, I agree with everything y'all was talking about when it comes to Black Americans and Africans. But me personally, I grew up with mainly Black American, and during high school, I had a couple of Nigerian friends. But I'm trying to think, were they born there or here? I think they were. I had some that was born there and some born over there, but for the most part, it's no beef. But they have a lot of pride in their country, and I have a lot of pride in mine. So,
Okay,
it's
cool.
not that.
All right, then. Go ahead.
I wanted to just ask, like, you know how people say sometimes, like, Black Americans, they don't have any culture?
I was going
and
to
they're-
ask that next.
Okay.
Do you feel that way? Do you feel like we don't have culture?
I don't know. I don't think I know it,
That's
All right,
good.
so
That's such
It's funny because my
amazing
friend, so you don't know the culture.
I don't.
It's
All
so
right.
crazy.
So I could give you examples right now from New York.
But you'll probably mention it, and she'll probably like realize what
That it is culture, right?
Right.
So you said you're from Long Island, Queens, right? So like the way that we speak, like actually this comedian, she did like a dissertation on this. You know how Black Americans, we use the word be a lot, like we be out, like we be outside, or like we
like
be
VAC.
Oh, AAVE.
but
AAV.
it's yeah, Av, but I don't like referring to it as
it's
that.
Av.
But yes, that. So that's culture. But I mean, something as simple as like food is culture. Something as simple as like the way we dress is our culture.
Okay.
Music. I mean, everything that is a part of Jamaican culture that you could think about is literally our culture. over
The
here.
thing is, it's like, I feel like because we're living in New York, I feel like, especially like in such a small area with like so many people, I feel like sometimes it's hard to differentiate
between the two.
because I feel like we swap it a lot of the time.
The melting pot.
Right. Yeah. So it's like it's hard to distinguish. But I'm sure if I went to the South, I'd be like, what the fuck? This is some different shit.
I mean, but I don't think that, and that's so weird because I don't think it even takes the South, because most of the people in the South migrated here. Like everyone here in the Black Americans
from the South.
are from the South.
But like, think about it too. Like, you can't tell when you're in New York City if you're Jamaican, if you're Caribbean, if you're Black American, like, because we all speak the same. You feel me? So it's like, you can't sit here and be like, oh yeah, I figured you were Jamaican, because like I'm speaking like a New Yorker.
I could look at somebody and be like, you're not Black American.
How?
It's
Because
easy.
it's the phenotype. So I also think that we have similar phenotypes, but South Carolinian phenotypes are very different. Like it's that Gullah Geechee
You know what's
phenotype.
crazy? I would not even think that you would be Black American. I would think you're from some type like Africa because of the big eyes and like
I got all different types
Ghanaian.
of things. I got all different types.
But you can. Me and my friends, we do know. Like, in South Carolina, you actually can tell apart like natural hair color. Like me, I actually have dirt brown hair. They call that in the South. Like my hair looks blonde underwater, and my best friend, our families are from the same areas, and we all have the same hair colors and textures throughout our families, right? So like in the water, like my hair literally looks dirt brown, but that's culturally to that area. Like, and it's not anyone else. Like, I guess you can say that would be like an indication people would say, could
So
tell you apart.
What else culturally? Like, how do you know when you walk into a group, you're like, yeah,
Just honestly, Jamaicans, they always have a certain facial expression. You know, Jamaican. I'm sorry, like it'd be like a pushed up nose, like what you want, like it's a certain mouth. Like you know, Jamaicans. Like I feel like certain ways I smile, somebody could just tell that I have Caribbean lineage. Like I feel like when I'm cheesing, it's like, oh my God, it looks so Caribbean. Like, oh my God.
I feel like I can't tell. I don't think, for me personally, I'm not going to say that I can tell apart like who's African American, I'm sorry for tapping on the table. I wouldn't want to say that I can tell apart someone who's African American, but I can tell apart our culture very distinctively because of the way that I cook my food, right?
Yeah,
And like my mother married a Trinidadian man, actually, and they've been married for about like 19 years now. Like the way my stepdad makes potato salad, that's not how we make potato
fried
salad.
chicken.
That's not how we make.
My boyfriend put onions in the boiling oil.
Yes, they make that.
What are you doing?
But that's what they do. But that's what they, and so we flavor our things completely different.
Yeah, so it's like.
But you would have to get to know a person. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you would have to have them in your crib, like, cooking to see, like, oh, that's a difference.
Or how about, this is the simplest thing I say, Southern, like, hospitality. Like, Black Americans, like, I have the most hospitality I've ever seen out of people that I know from other countries and other places.
Isn't that a North America, isn't that like a North and South thing?
No.
Like, regardless of color or, like, where you're from, it's not just like a northern and southern
because
thing.
I'm from New York. My grandmother is the one who's from South Carolina. I wasn't born there, but my hospitality went through generations, right? Whereas like when you come to my house, like my friends were like, "You're crazy. You're like weird. Why is your house always so clean?" Because like the way that I was brought up, it was like the way you walk out this house is a representation of us because we had to be. My family was raised like if you walk out a house looking a certain way, no one will give you respect, especially because you're Black already. But being dressed a certain way made us look a certain way. So you always had to carry yourself a certain way.
That's from being in America, though, because when you go back to Jamaica, you don't wear none of your good clothes outside except if you're going to church or school, right? See? All your clothes that you want to play in, all the sneakers you want to play in, those are your judging clothes. That's what you wear when you want to just kick some stuff around. But you're not going outside on a like this if you're not going to church or school or to like some kind of festivity. I feel like that's bred from like obviously being in America because now my mom is the same exact way where it's like you don't go outside just looking, make sure your face is clean, make sure your nails are clean and all of that.
But that's a Black American thing.
I was going to say that's a Black American thing because you remember how like the colonizers came here. We welcomed them with open arms. We gave them Thanksgiving. We gave them, they say, they try to say that that's the Pocahontas Native Americans, but those were indigenous. I can get deeper, but those were indigenous Black Americans. So we are we open people with welcome arms. Do you want something? Do you need something? And it could get deeper. I just feel
that's like a whole the idea that and it's so funny because and this is where the blame can go back to like Africans and their whole relationship with the whole slave trade happening because it was always welcoming arms, right? So it was always this idea that we, right, knowing that we are descendants of slaves, right, those slaves were opening armed people, right? And that's the exact reason why we got into this predicament we are in. Because as a people, we have always been nice, right?
Yeah, too nice.
One story I always tell people is like, the time colonization was happening in Africa, they were trying to colonize China, right? They were trying to get access to the Silk Road. They didn't get access. They didn't even, the Europeans were unknown to the Chinese. They actually had a lot of trade relationships with like a lot of West African cultures and Northern West Africans. And they're like, who are these European people coming through? The Chinese were not opening their doors, but who did open their doors? Africans, right? And so it was kind of interesting that the Chinese, that colonization that happened during the time that we were being colonized was not happening at the same time because they weren't like opening their doors to no one because they were like, they understood you were coming here to kind of like impose this religion on us and like trying to strip down our people. And it was just like two different ideas of like how we are, but the same things that took us down then are taking us down in the modern day world. They asked us, hey, can we get some slaves? We'll give you guns, liquor, and drugs. The same things that are like affecting us now.
Right.
Like,
So I think, all right. So I feel like we talked about a lot. So my last question is, what should every group within the diaspora focus on more other than diaspora arguments to better their lineage and to better our connection?
I think
education.
Ooh, I thank you.
Education, and I think I think this is like an education lesson right here.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot.
For people to see on YouTube and whatnot. But like we have the internet and we could create Sunday or Saturday schools when a lot of people are not working, whether it be we can have a class for adults, we can have classes for children, like education.
I think advocating for your people. I think advocating for spaces to have more conversations like that, like this right now, because that's the only way people will learn. That's the only way change actually happens. And then being willing to learn something, because you can kind of educate people, but their willingness to accept it and the harsh realities behind that is a whole different conversation. So I think that's it. That's how
Khadisha,
it works.
you were saying something in the back. What you said? White supremacy.
Oh yeah,
okay.
that too.
Yeah.
That too.
To break down
Yeah,
that.
the only we can't if we can't come together.
Yeah.
We won't end white supremacy, and that's the problem, because when we were doing it, they were scared of us. That's why they broke us up.
Yeah. What do you think could, help us not argue and focus on coming together, or just our personal lineage?
Yeah. I feel like positions of power, that might be something a white person would say, but I feel like we need to be a power. Like, there's no way that you're gonna have a white person coming in and teaching a class full of people about your history without really knowing it. So we can have those Sunday school classes, we can have those Saturday classes, but it needs to be on a global scale, on a bigger platform where we are the teachers in the classrooms. We focus on education, even if it's not making the most money, but we go back to the schools where we were in and become those powers, become the principal, become the DOE director.
Exactly.
We need to be those people so we can educate our own people. Because what's happening, I feel, is when education is not a priority in your community, then you kind of just become maybe the janitor that's cleaning the classroom versus the educator that's educating the children. And I'm only speaking in New York because I grew up here. I don't know what's going on anywhere else. But
Have you been back to Jamaica?
yeah, you know what's interesting? I lived in Jamaica when I was younger for 6 months. I went to school there for a little bit. But when you're younger, you don't get it. When I went back after I had my son, I put shit together a little bit better. Sorry for cursing. But the kids there, the books that they're reading, those kids dead ass look like them. The math books have Black kids on the cover. The books about history, they're learning about their history. I don't know any, for real, if I talk about this with my family, but I don't really know the history about Jamaica. I don't even really know about the history of being a Black, first generation Black American, here, or Jamaican American, whatever, however. So I feel you need to, in order to have that pride, or not in order to have the pride, because the pride is there, but for everyone else to be on the same accord, you have to have the same education level about your situation.
And I think that was the purpose of the Black Panther Party, right?
Yeah.
That was the purpose of free school lunch, right? That was intentionally done by the Black Panthers.
Yes.
The ones here in America. The only reason why New York City was able to get free lunch, the reason why the rest of those states and places that have free lunch, that was an idea that was created here.
But I feel it wasn't on it was a power, right? But there was something else, right? That was purposefully breaking that down.
Oh, well, yeah, COINTELPRO, but I think the objective got done. Everyone was educated on the same level of knowing their roots. Everyone was willing to travel out of America to go to Africa to see what it would be like to live there, or go to the Caribbean to go see what it was like to live there, right? And to understand who they are. I think that, me speaking, being in the education field, I don't think that it's the same as it was when I was growing up. I didn't know that I was actually very privileged going to predominantly Black schools when I was in elementary, right? Or middle school. Then when I went to high school, I went to predominantly white high school, and I learned a big difference of how education was taught, the value.
I had to take my daughter
having...
out of a private school because I just can't. I can't let her go to school with a bunch of white tea. I can't.
And the value of having Black educators in front of you. But I do think and know now, that what people don't really know about, teaching here, it's it's a choice to teach what you teach when they teach the curriculum here, right? I'm a Black teacher, and for me, I intentionally choose units where I can be more culturally diverse. And I don't choose the units where I will just focus on what everyone has focused on for several years, right?
But that takes a level of awareness, though, that you have amongst yourself. And that's, it's not in everybody.
It's not. But it's definitely an agenda that has definitely been pushed down for the last 5 years. Ever since I've studied been studying to be an educator. That's literally the agenda now. To make it, basically, it's called culturally responsive learning, right? That's really what they call that, or that's a whole conversation.
Okay.
I can't even say.
All right. It's okay. Well, I feel like we had a great conversation. I want to answer my own question and add everything that you all just gave us. So I think number one, the main thing that we probably as each individual group need to focus on is our lineage and empowering the people in our lineage. Caribbeans, Africans, and foundational Black Americans, descendants of slavery, we all have coons in our neighborhoods. And like, I feel like it starts with our own specific lineage. The Pan-Africanism idea works when we better ourselves individually first, but it cannot work right now, in my opinion, until we focus on us. So like, Jamaicans need to be teaching Jamaicans about, you know, if they're here, they probably should be teaching other Jamaicans here about Black American history. But if they're in their own country, teach your people about your history and not about the freaking queen. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like that's where it should start. I also think while we're here in the States, there needs to be some respect. I don't think people respect our culture, Black American culture, enough. And I'm always going to say our as if that's just my identity because I grew up with my mom's side. And I don't think that the culture is respected. I think it's copied, duplicated, like remixed. You know what I mean? And then y'all be like, y'all ain't got no culture. And then you got this video of like people rapping. It's like, come on now, you wouldn't even know what a rapping person looks like had you not watched us. Like, so I don't think there's respect, and I don't like that because I respect Jamaican culture. I respect Caribbean culture so much. I respect my boyfriend's culture so much. And I want people to respect my culture the same way. So I think in order for us to build, we have to respect each other's culture lineage. We cannot call it lazy. We cannot call it ghetto. The reality is that we're tired. Like, we work for 400 years for free. Like, probably the person who wants to sit down and have a drink, they can. They're tired. That generational trauma is beating their ass. Like, they can sit down. Like, they don't have to slave. Like, they can go out. They can enjoy themselves. They can buy what they want. They could do it all because they are tired. Like, they have to deal with this every day.
Sick and tired.
So I just don't like that.
I think we are tired of them like burning up our like Black Wall Streets type of
it's like
town.
we build and we have to come back down. We have so many accomplishments that we built. We built the colleges. We built the schools. We made the curriculum. We made the inventions. Like, we're sitting in front of a bunch of Black American inventions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and we're tired of people taking over our things. And I think the only way that we can all build and like really, you know, I guess beat white supremacy, which they say that that's the goal, right, is by respecting each other's cultures. And so I'll end it on that note. I also think that it's important to delineate. And so like in America, like, you know, this idea of flat Blackness hurts us. And it's important to delineate. And so if you're Jamaican, it's important to say that with pride. If you're Black American, it's important for people to know that and not try to confuse you with somebody else. Because Chinese and Japanese and Korean people, they are different people, right? But we look at them as all Asian, but we can still differentiate with their culture and respect it in each individuality. So we should be able to do that within our diaspora and not be like, oh, but you don't have no culture, you don't have no history. Like, that's not nice. So I'll end it with that. I hope that like you all learned from this conversation. I learned a lot too. So I'll end it with that. And thank you all for watching Viral Debates and joining Viral Debates today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.